Hi, this is Don Hall at Don Hall Works YouTube channel, and I'm here with Loren Lukens in Merced, California. And Loren wants to do a video for you on several different ways to make a handle for your mugs.
Hi, welcome everybody. I'm going to start this demonstration with an extrusion. I've custom made a form. This is the form that I cut out of aluminum using a coping saw. I recommend you make your own so that it's really uniquely yours. I have my die installed in my extruder, so I'm ready to go. Put the clay in, put the plunger in, and let her rip. That's enough for now. Alright, here it is. This is a strip that I just extruded. It has a shape that you wouldn't be able to get by pulling a handle. So let's go see what we can do. So yesterday I threw a bunch of mugs. I have several of them on the table here. I'm just going to show you a few and how I treat each one differently. This is one shape that I threw. It's a regular thrown mug without any alterations at all. And let's do a little trim job on it. So I have a ring of damp clay, and I'll use that as to keep the thing from sliding around. I'll tap the center, and it's stuck down nice so it won't go anywhere. Use a trimming tool. Fairly standard trim on this. It needs a little bit of a foot. Hardly any clay comes off of this because I did a pretty good job of throwing these. Use my tip of my finger to burnish the clay. And I'll finish the inside. It won't have a foot ring per se, but I'll finish the inside with just a little twist so you end up with a little spiral on the inside. So now I'm going to do a handle for this, and I'm going to use that extruded piece that I just showed you how I did. And here's the piece of clay. I'll cut a good long length of it. So here's the extrusion. And I'm going to start by altering the end by tapping. I'll tap it into a bigger attachment spot. And then score. And this handle is going to be attached from the base, and it will make a loop come around this way. So I'll score for my attachment. Add a little bit of clay from yesterday's throwing, a little bit of moisture, just a little bit. Doesn't take much. Fill in those score lines on each piece, on each side, both on the handle and on the piece. Now make my attachment. A really easy way to do this would just be to loop it over and attach it, but I don't do it that way. I'm actually going to pull this handle a little bit. It's a lot more interesting if you get a little shape, side to side shape. This way you get a shape that you could get neither by strictly pulling or just by extruding. You get a combination of the two, using all the techniques that you know already about pulling a handle, using the shape of your hand to create a mold for the shaping of the handle. Thinning the end, but not all the way to the end, because I want extra thickness at the very end for the attachment. And you can see how I've thinned it, made it into goes narrow and then it gets wide again. Knowing where to cut this off is a little bit of a trick. And I've, based on experience, I know that it's about this long. So this is where I'm going to cut it. Clean that up a little bit and then flip it around. So I've just made the loop, and now it's time to attach it to the piece. I'm very gradually smoothing this out, the extra thickness of that handle, so that it ends up making a really nice curve that is uninterrupted. And then use the tip of my finger to clean up the joint. And a sponge to finish completely. The last thing I'll do to this is shape it from the inside. Pull it up into a little bit of a point so that it has a little flare to it. There you go. So this is another shape. I'm going to describe how to make a handle for it. This is a thrown form. You can see that it's pretty curvy on one side, and I flattened it on this side, but I'm going to alter it just a little further so that you can see something else. This, on the flattened side, I'm going to take my thumb and really push in. So there's an indent. Can you see the indent there? So this is really an altered shape that it's no longer round. The handle's going to come off this way, and you'll be drinking out of this curved edge. All right, it's time to trim. All right, we're ready to trim. I've got this centered on the piece. You can see how it's kind of wonky here. And that's a nice thing about trimming on a clay bat rather than on a foam bat, is that you can accommodate that. So in this case, I left a little flange at the bottom, and I'm going to accentuate that with my trimming. Actually make a flared base to it. A little bit of a trimmed foot. And this time I'm going to use a roller, just a pasta roller. Oh, squeaky, is it? You can change the shape just by using the roller. And one thing I forgot to do on that first piece is I use a little stamp that has my initial on it. And I'll stamp the piece right on the edge. There we go. Time to put a handle on. In this case, I'm going to start with a slug of clay. It's kind of triangularly shaped, long and narrow at one end and wider at the other end. square, tap the end to thicken it. So it's time to score and slip to do the attachment. This is the best scoring tool I've ever had. This is a piece I bought at a potter's tool store in Jingdezhen, China. The best place to buy pottery tools. And this tool I use to score the handle to. A little bit of water. I'm going to go ahead and score where the attachment will be on the bottom too. Tiny bit of water and a little bit of throwing slip from yesterday. Just the tiniest bit. Doesn't take much. Score and slip both the handle and the attachment spot. Press the clay all the way around. Use the tip of your finger to make sure that there's no gap, so no water can get in behind it. All the way around. Tapping the end gives you a little bit of a flange that you can press into. This is really the most important part, because this will make sure that the attachment is good and it won't come off now or later in the process. All right, this slug has been attached and it's ready to pull. Use plenty of water. Plenty of water. There's no need to skimp. Just like you were throwing a pot or you're centering, you want to use lots of water because you don't want any kind of a hesitation, no grabbing. So I'm using the tip of my finger, my thumb, to make a groove here and a groove on this side, one on each side. Some people pull handles with just one groove down the center. I don't find that to be an appealing look. I like to have the shape be more curved this way rather than curved this way. It's a personal thing, and there's no one right way to do this. So I'm using my thumb here to thin and pressing down from the outside, and then so pressing down from the outside makes it spread, and then I control that spread from the outside edges. You notice I'm not pulling all the way off the end of the piece. I'm allowing that base down here at the bottom to stay a little thicker. So you see in the side view, it's wide, it's narrow, and it's wide. That's also a personal preference. All right, that's enough. Time to attach. And spread it out. And trim it off. Little curve. You want to be careful not to touch the outside of it at this point because your hands are all goopy and you'll just make fingerprints. So try to avoid touching the outside of the handle. But you can do lots of shaping from the inside. Now I'm going to do one little touch from the outside to change the shape. See how I flattened it? Make it so that it's the right shape for your hand to fit. There you go. So I'll show you a third way to make a handle. And this time it'll be on a different kind of a shape. This is a regularly thrown, pretty much of a soup can style of mug, which is, by the way, probably the best thing to drink from. Campbell's soup can, you can't beat that shape. It's a little boring, so I change it. I do an alteration on this shape, and this is what I do. I take that round shape, and with a stiff rib, I alter it, alter, alter, and then I'll take a rib, go down inside, and I'll pull the corners up, and I'll alter it into a square shape on the top. It takes some effort to get to this point, but that's for another video. Right now, let's get this one trimmed and a handle put on it. This time, when I cut the piece off of the bat, I used a wiggle wire. Sorry, here it is. I think I've showed this in previous videos. So it's a spring steel wire that's been twisted into a tight corner. And when I cut it off, I gave it a little bit of a jig-jag. So you end up with this interesting pattern on the bottom. So let me get this thing centered on this clay slab a little bit. Tiniest bit of a trim with the trimming tool. And then I'll use the roller again. You can see how the roller smooths the clay and creates a little bit of a ridge. And a little bit of a clean up right at the edge of that. And a stamp. There it goes. Now we know who made that. All right, this time I'm going to pull a handle separately from the piece. Rather than attaching a piece and pulling it, I'm going to pull the handle off of a bit of clay. This is the old milking the cow type handle. Most of my handles I pull right off of the piece, but you can get a little more refinement by pulling it separately and then attaching it. Sometimes it's important to be able to dry the piece of the clay a little bit between pulling the handle and doing the attachment. So we'll see how this works. So you see I'm using the tip of my thumb to create the handle shape with a little ridge down the center. I'm going to do a cut off here with a fettling knife. And this is the point at which I would ordinarily let this thing dry just a little bit before I did the attachment. But I'll just lay it out here and get the mug ready by scoring and slipping. In this case, I think I'll do it off of the corner. No, I'll do it off the flat side. You can have your choice. Do you want the handle to come off the corner or off of the flat side? I think it'll be easier to show you what I'm up to by putting it on the flat side here. Score, and I'm anticipating where the handle will be, hopefully right about here. Tiny bit of water. Least little bit of slip. And now, see if I can accomplish this with this a little bit too wet bit of clay. It would be helpful if this was just a little drier. And guessing at the cutoff point, and reattach a little bit here at the top. It didn't quite work. It's a little bit of a mess, but it's okay. Well, I hope you learned a few things about making handles, lots of different ways to do it. I'm glad you were watching Don Hall Works. Don't forget to like and subscribe.